This is Marketing Jam, a podcast featuring the brightest minds in Canadian marketing. Here's your host, Darian Kovacs.
Hey, I'm Darian. Welcome to Marketing Jam. I'm excited for our show today. I want to thank two of our sponsors before we get going. The fine folks at Cyber Impact. You've heard of MailChimp, Constant Contact. We have a Canadian alternative. The question is, do you know where your contacts are and where your contacts are being hosted in? It's probably in the United States of America. Cyber Impact is the Canadian alternative where your contacts are in servers in Canada. Our other sponsor is the fine folks at This. They provide for you a beautiful dashboard for those in marketing and those who want to communicate what sort of goals and achievements are happening online. They can track all that for you and put it in a beautiful infographic format that you and your clients and you and your in-house staff can access all the time. So check them out at this.com and cyberimpact at cyberimpact.com. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you, internet folks, and wherever else you're watching or listening to the show, we have Pam here, who is the head of PR for Microsoft Vancouver. Not to be confused with Vancouver, Washington, but Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Yes.
Yes.
Big distinction.
Yes. So Pam, why don't we start with when we met?
Okay.
Why don't you tell, do you remember when we met, and why don't you tell about the context of where we met?
We met at a conference.
Okay, lovely.
You invited me there.
Yes.
And it was to in Squamish at CIMC to talk about basically what I do, social media, the kinds of projects that we work on, and joining me were a whole bunch of other awesome people, which was super fun. So that's, I don't know, more than that?
No, that's great. That's great. So CIMC is still happening. It's happening this year up in Squamish again, the Canadian Internet Marketing Conference, now owned by Agency Media. So it is now no longer one of our properties. But I think they're going to do an amazing job this year. Check it out. I'm so curious. They're going to be launching anytime soon the website and registration.
Yeah, Joel sent me an email.
Okay.
He's going to ask me some questions.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So first thing I need to talk about is Microsoft.
Okay.
And I think the majority of listeners, and I could be wrong, but are thinking Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and I think that just goes along with the Microsoft term. So when people meet you and when you talk about what you do for a job, how much of it deals with Microsoft Word and Excel and maybe promoting that or doing the PR for those two entities?
So I think that's when most people meet me and they're like, oh, you work at Microsoft, like, you know, tell me about Office, and that's actually not what I do. I work with a development center in Vancouver, so I work with the software engineers who build the products. And I have the distinct pleasure of working with about 600 engineers, and they work on a lot of products that people would recognize, like Skype and OneNote, but they also work on mixed reality. They build the game Gears of War.
Oh, wow.
And then there's a whole bunch of people who work on individual things, so they might work on our cloud platform for Azure. They might work on, they might be somebody who's working on Excel, but it's basically a whole bunch of people, some of them in teams, some of them individually, right in downtown Vancouver.
It's amazing. So how many staff in total are in the Vancouver, BC offices?
So we have 3 different spaces within Vancouver. Our main space, which is on the corner of Georgia and Granville, and there's about 550 engineers working there on a variety of products. And then in Yaletown, we have another 150 people working on Gears of War. So that's our video game team, which we keep separate just because if they were in our building, then we wouldn't be able to take people on a tour because video games are super top secret and their development cycle is long. And then we have a sales and marketing office that is on Georgia.
Okay. And sales and marketing office, what are they doing? What are they selling and marketing?
They're the ones that would be talking directly to clients.
Okay.
So they're the ones that go out and help businesses and help school districts, and they're working on solutions for enterprise clients, bigger clients. And then obviously we have a retail store right in the bottom of our building for everybody else basically.
Very cool. So those of you that, those are listeners that aren't as familiar with the Microsoft ecosystem, maybe name some other properties that you guys are a part of or are in kind of your world, what would you say?
Like in Vancouver?
Or just in general? Yeah, in general,
From a product perspective?
Or anything, like maybe things that people know, like Xbox. Maybe I don't know if people realize that you guys own
we
Xbox.
Own Xbox.
And you own Minecraft.
We do.
Right? Which is pretty awesome.
Minecraft is huge and getting bigger and bigger. And like on the Xbox side, we own the platform. We internally make a bunch of games for it, and then obviously a lot of other developers make games for it as well. Minecraft is newer to our portfolio, and an opportunity for kids and adults to play around with technology and learn a little bit about coding and put something together. So that's been great to watch that grow, especially on the education side of it. We also own MSN, which people don't know, and most of that is actually done out of Vancouver.
And when you think of MSN, again, for me, MSN Messenger is what comes to mind.
Yep.
What is MSN today?
Still a platform.
Like Messenger?
You can, more a news platform. So like news aggregation. So you could, for us, when we turn on our computers in the morning, MSN is what comes up.
MSN.com.
Yep, gives you the day's news. They do a lot of interactive online programming around big events. So the Olympics, during the US presidential election, they're doing a lot of tons of content, looking at what people are saying, obviously operating through social media sites because that's so much of what media is today.
Yeah, okay, very cool.
Yeah.
And other properties would be, again, like you said, Skype. And Bing.
Yes.
Is your search engine?
Yeah,
so within MSN.com, is there a Bing search area on there? Okay, very cool.
Yeah, every time you do a search when you're sort of within the Office family, you're in Bing.
You're binging. Do you say binging?
We just had this conversation yesterday because somebody was trying to type binging. Like they were like, your sort of online content binging.
Yeah,
and
like
they were
binging the crown.
They're like, is there an E or
yeah.
not an E? Not an E. And I said, well, if there's not an E, you're binging. So
binging.
I don't know if the Bing team actually says that. But
what do you say?
I would just say using Bing.
Using Bing.
I don't like making words up sometimes.
Do you say I binged that? Or let me bing that for you?
Yeah, I would say that.
You would say that?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I am known amongst Jelly, and I get teased for this sometimes, is that I'm a big fan of and a pusher of Bing to it, because I feel every once in a while when we look at the Google Analytics, which is funny enough that it's on Google Analytics, Analytics shows us that for certain of our clients, especially an older demographic, or maybe more of a blue collar, or people that are maybe more of a B2B market, they use Bing, and people are searching on Bing. Because I feel like they bought a PC, they brought it home.
Yep, it had that.
It came with Internet Explorer, and they never switched it out. And so or they're in a professional setting where it's just Internet Explorer, and then they're Binging. Okay, do you go down to the headquarters once in a while?
Yeah, it's nice. It's there's sort of that central, mothership that is our Redmond head office, and then there are 6 global development centers that are located outside of it, where development actually happens, so separate from sales and marketing or retail. So we are one of those 6, and we are the closest. So it's nice for us to be just a couple hours away and be able to, teams can go down, they can meet with, if they're working on an extended team, have meetings with them, people can come up. But we're still far enough away that we have a distinct Vancouver culture and our own thing going on.
And I'm giving you questions as well, but I've also crowdsourced some of the questions. And so what someone want to know, again, I'm going to throw those in as well, so don't worry, listeners, those that you submit a question, they will get brought in, is have you met Bill Gates?
I have.
And?
It was probably what people would expect it to be. So we had the opportunity, the whole board of directors came up to Vancouver in the fall. And so we heard they were coming, and they were coming for an event around the Cascadia corridor. So conversations that are happening around how we bring Seattle and Portland together with Vancouver, because there's a lot of things that are similar about the cities when it comes to the tech industry. So they came to Vancouver, and it was the first time that Bill had been in our new office. I wasn't there when we were in the old office, so I don't know if he came then, but everybody was sort of nervous about it. And I have a coworker, we have a maker space called The Garage. And so my coworker Stacy had kind of built this art piece out of pieces of acrylic that looks like Bill. And she'd hung it on the wall, and we talked about it, and we're like, we'll find an opportunity to get him near it and we can take a picture with it. So we were at a reception with a whole bunch of people, standing around and having a conversation with somebody like this, and you just could kind of feel somebody step up next to you. And I turned, and it was Bill Gates. I was like, he just ghosted into my conversation. So you sort of stop and, oh, hello, Mr. Gates, welcome. And I introduced him to the other guest. And so it was kind of an unexpected opportunity when, I wasn't presented to, it wasn't, oh, here's Bill, meet him or whatever. So we just made conversation about what was happening in Vancouver, and then sort of said, hey, if you get a moment and you kind of head around that corner over there, we've made something in Vancouver here that looks like you. And he kind of gave us that like, okay, that sounds creepy. And and then he walked away.
Yeah.
And I didn't see him for the rest of the night, but then later on when I got pictures back from our photographer who shot the event, we had a picture of Bill Gates standing next to his likeness in acrylic.
Very cool.
So I think it worked out.
That's very cool. So one of the things that I've loved about having been a part of CIMC was we brought together some of the best and brightest in marketing from across Canada. And the only problem was we didn't get the chance to go very deep. And because I remember you dropped some great truth bombs and some gems on stage, but we get a chance here to kind of hear, how did you get to where you are today? You're sitting on a couch now, you're working at Microsoft. You mentioned you went to SFU, so maybe give us the story of like where you were from then to now.
Okay. I went to SFU. I went to university right out of high school. I had big plans to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And I like to do things, not just learn about them. So I worked in a law firm while I was going to school and realized I hated it. And so I was sort of undecided for a while, and I had taken a bunch of psychology courses, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. So I took a communications course just for fun.
Nice.
And was like, hey, this is my thing.
Yeah.
And so I graduated and then started working in advertising to start with, and kind of wound my way through advertising. I worked in government in Kelowna for a while, came back to the city, went back to advertising, and then...
Was it brand side or agency side?
It was brands, well, both. I worked in a really small agency that specialized in packaging.
Yeah.
So that was fun because it was a small team. Everybody gets to participate. You get to see a lot of the strategy development and how they work with clients. And then from there, I went to Future Shop, and I worked there for 5 years as a PR person. So sort of making the switch officially into like, okay, now I'm going to do PR. Before I was just sort of starting out and dabbling in everything. And so for 5 years, I talked about DVD players. The best gifts for Christmas, whatever else was going on in the company, and then decided that I'd kind of learned everything I was going to learn there, and I wanted to leave, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I started my own business and became a consultant, and I thought this is a good way for me to sort of get broader experience, talk to different people, and the first client that I landed on my own was an exhibition that came to Science World called Body Worlds.
Yeah, of course.
And I took the job in like the lobby of a hotel where they interviewed me, and then I flew to Houston and I saw the exhibit and I was like, what did I just get myself into? But it was great, and I spent 6 months there and worked with Science World, and that helped me sort of figure out how to be independent and work with clients who were either hands-off or not in the city or had questions. And then I kind of dabbled in a whole bunch of things. And so I've worked in oil and gas. I spent 3 years working in film and TV, doing a variety of things, but sort of getting a toehold into social media and adding that to the repertoire of things I could do. I spent a couple years working with the Gastown Business Improvement Society on like how do you promote a neighborhood when you have no budget. And then got the job at Microsoft, and I've been there for 2 years.
That's very cool. Very cool. So if you were to describe what the role of someone in PR is, how do you describe it today?
Today, it's a lot different today than it used to be. So today, PR is traditionally earned opportunities. So it's whatever you can achieve that you didn't have to pay for necessarily. So today, for me, it's all storytelling. It's talking to people, finding interesting stories, and then looking at how I can best share that story with our audience. Today, that's a lot of social. I certainly do still work with media outlets, and I do pitch stories, and we talk about things that are bigger. But for the most part, it's what kind of content can I create, and where's the best place for me to share that? And it's Instagram, it's Facebook, it's Twitter, video.
So would you have the keys to all the engines then of the Vancouver Microsoft social accounts?
I do. Okay,
and so that would be when you say PR is your world, it includes digital PR, so social media and.
Does.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, I'm a rare fixture, because in the Microsoft world, most people that are working on the PR and marketing side are showcasing product. They're connected to the sales and marketing team. I'm connected to a development team. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is showcase what we're doing, what we're building in Vancouver, as opposed to the products specifically. So it's more the people, the innovation that's happening, how the Vancouver tech industry is working together.
Yeah.
Some really fun stuff. I get to tell some really cool stories.
Really cool. So would you say your job is more the means of Microsoft versus the end?
Yeah. It's you know, I would never tell a story about, you know, Microsoft Word. Yeah. Because that product it's owned somewhere else, and you know, we certainly share the news when there's an update or something happens, but what I'm looking at is, you know, what are the engineers who are working on product every day, you know, where did they come from? What's their area of expertise, and why did they do this for a living, and what do they do when they're not at work? You know, what aspirations do they have to be innovative in their own career?
How do you decide between sending something out maybe to the traditional media or to maybe to bloggers, maybe influencers, versus doing it yourself on your own YouTube channel?
We have some news because of the size of the company that we are. So we have some news that is bigger news. You know, examples would be when we moved into our space. It was a huge affair.
Massive,
Prime Minister came, it was awesome. So that was more of a traditional, you know, sort of PR outreach. There's a story, they can come in and talk to somebody. But most of the time, it's building our own content. So it's, and we talk to, like I'll talk to reporters about, you know, things that are happening, but the relationship is different than it's been in other jobs that I've had, where it's more of like I need an instant response. So I'm calling a reporter and I'm looking to try to land a story, you know, that week. Now I talk to them and I'm like, hey, we're doing a bunch of things this year in education. And here's, you know, kind of a list of the things that are going to happen. What are you interested in? What kinds of stories are you trying to tell? And how can I help you?
That's really cool. How have you found your Rolodex, you know, since Future Shop and now at Microsoft? How do you, since, you know, different outlets are shutting down, are you having to constantly throw out little cards out of your Rolodex machine?
I haven't had a physical Rolodex in a while, but
really?
Yeah, I know.
We could bring them back.
I know. I think
it could be a new thing for PR people.
I like all things vintage. I'm a real 70s kid, so I want all that stuff, and I've thought about it. I've toyed with the idea of putting it on my desk, but
if I found you one, would you put it on your desk?
I might.
You might? Okay.
I might. Okay. But yeah, I mean, contexts change, outlets change. I find that for everyone that goes away, there's something that's filling its place. Like there's always going to be people who are going to tell stories in, you know, however society continues to develop. And so I think it's just about, you know, I know a lot of PR people who are having trouble letting go of that. Well, this is my process. I have a list and I do call downs and it's not as effective anymore. You know, reporters want longer term relationships. They want to be more than just, here's an email about, you know, dear so-and-so, this is what we're releasing today. And so I just find it's more person to person, like it was when I first started.
Yeah, interesting. So would you say a lot of like coffees and lunches and visits?
Yeah, a lot of, because I don't have urgent stories that are landing. It's like, hey, let's get together and just talk about, you know, what you guys are doing, and the stories that we're telling they're going to happen in 6 months, or they're going to, you know, there's some events that are going on, but I'm calling and saying, hey, are you interested? And if you are interested, what could I do to help, you know, make this a good story for you? Yeah,
that makes sense. One of my favorite reporters, Jillian from the Vancouver Sun. But so now, in a sense, in the world of downsizing within the Pacific News Group, she is now, I think, freelancer, but still doing stuff here and there. So tell how would you approach like a Jillian? Would you invite her out for coffee, or would you go to her office? Would you invite her to meet in a neutral spot, or what was the approach?
Yeah, and it's funny because I've worked with Jillian for years, because I worked with her when I was at Future Shop too. I think, you know, so many of them, when they're freelancing, with, you know, they're out hustling to find stories every day. So it's pretty, it's good practice to reach out to them and say, hey, let's get together for coffee and let's just talk about the things that are going on in my world and stories that you might be working on. And sometimes just in conversation, an idea comes up. And, you know, she's a good example. Another one, you know, working with publications like Monte Cristo. They, you know, they don't publish every month. And so when they're thinking about a story, it's for, you know, I'm thinking about it now to land it in the fall. And so if you can, you know, make a connection and talk to Jim and, you know, say, hey, like, here's some things that are going on. Maybe there's something there, maybe there isn't. And, you know, the last time that I talked to him, the thing that we decided was a possible story idea was the thing I would never have considered. So you don't know what they've already got, and if they're building, if they're publications like that, they're building a whole issue. So you might fit into it because the story that you have actually goes along with the issue, or in having a conversation you find a common ground that's like, oh, you guys are interested in that? Oh, well, we do that.
Yeah.
So.
Are you finding when you're doing the outreach and connecting with people that you get thrown over to the salespeople and asked to buy advertorial instead?
Not so much.
Okay.
I think there was a time when that happened, and now I feel like there's a focus on journalism that's allowing sort of the separation between the two to happen again.
Okay.
We have different, working in a company like mine, there's lots of people who do those different jobs. So I'm not really, when you're working for a small company and you might be responsible for both, it's a different conversation. For me now, it's sort of like, oh, that's actually not my realm, but let me find the person to connect you to. But, I think media have always wanted to keep them separate. And there were times when there was some pressure to connect them. Some outlets are different than others. But it's not, for the types of things I'm doing, I'm not quite in that space.
Okay.
If you're pitching individual stories where, it's kind of a stretch to make it a news item, that's when you always kind of got that, yeah, this sounds great, but it's maybe an ad.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And tell me about software tools that you use. Is there any PR tools that you're like, this is awesome, or this is just a necessary part of the job that you kind of keep in your arsenal?
I use Hootsuite.
Yep.
And it's probably the only tool that I use on a regular basis. Yep. We have some internal tools at Microsoft, and I use those to a certain extent. But I'm old school, and I think sometimes when it comes to like scheduling, or if I'm gonna, if it's social and I'm gonna send tweets, I work better when I'm in the minute.
Yeah.
And like what I write is current and authentic. And when I started this job, I was building social channels from scratch. So they're not that big, but I think some of the success that I've had is that I do try to have like a human voice instead of a totally brand voice.
Yeah.
Like when you compare the way that we sort of do it in Vancouver to the way that a sales channel might do it, or some of the bigger channels that are talking about product, I get to have a bit of fun with it. A bit of a sense of humor, kind of developed what the Vancouver voice might be, to the point where I tweeted a photo yesterday of a couple of our guys were just playing around with one of those like Viewmaster or like the kids' toys.
ViewSonic.
Yeah, that you look through those. Yeah. And they happened to work on our mixed reality team, and they were just having a conversation. They didn't know that I was participating in it at all, and I just took a couple of pictures because it looked so great. And then I tweeted it. I was like, here's our mixed reality team at work. And it's having a bit of sense of humor that sort of people go, oh, that's not just a like, it's 12:22, here comes a tweet. Yeah. So.
Very cool. And when you're doing your PR outreach, do you use tools like Meltwater or Cision to
I've used Cision, not lately because I'm not usually sending anything that's sort of bigger in scope. And now I'm kind of reaching out to individual journalists. But Cision was a tool I used pretty much my whole career of, how do you reach a whole bunch of people and make sure that your message gets heard. Yeah.
Very cool. And then now, do you track like the MRP numbers, like the media rating points? Is that even?
We do. We have an agency.
Okay.
So I have the good fortune to have agency people to back me up.
Okay.
And I get daily reports from them, and they're looking at the numbers. They're pinch hitting when it's bigger news, and it's more than I can do on my own. So I benefit from that for sure.
Very cool. And Hootsuite, do you use it on your phone? Do you use it on a desktop?
Both.
Or both? Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
And do you post using the Hootsuite platform to all the channels? Very cool. And then YouTube, do you shoot the videos and edit them yourselves? Or
I don't do it. Okay. I have an awesome individual who works with me, Kyle, who he came in as an intern 2 years ago. So he started like a week before I did.
Yeah.
And he was sort of, they brought him in from SFU. He's also from SFU.
Nice.
And to make a video, and he was so good at the storytelling and being able to quickly grasp what kind of voice we wanted to have, that we've been working together now for 2 years. He still goes to school. He hasn't graduated yet, but I'm very protective of letting anyone talk to him. I don't want to lose him.
Yeah, no, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Wow. And in the work that you do on the daily basis, what's kind of like your favorite part of the day or your highlights of maybe a week that you're like, this is why I do what I do?
I really love any social stuff. So coming from like pure PR background where, you know, I had to come up with a story, write a press release, pitch it to media, wait, you know, the stress of waiting to see if anyone's going to pick up on it is fine. But I love the instant interaction that you can get through social. And I like being able to be, you know, funny and talk to people directly and see people interact with it or respond to it. I mean, most of the people that I'm talking to are people within the tech industry who, you know, get the humor and are like, oh yeah, that, you know, and they or they want to talk about an event and I get to, you know, live tweet through an event. That's my favorite stuff to do. I'm an amateur photographer, so I like taking pictures in the office and posting them and showing people how much fun we have and, you know, what everybody's working on and some of the cool things that we get to build.
Very cool. So what are your thoughts about animated GIFs?
I don't use them too much.
Okay.
Mostly because I don't think that it fits with our brand.
Okay.
So, you know, I think the biggest thing when I started at Microsoft was figuring out what our voice was going to be.
Yeah.
So looking, you know, you look at the corporate brand. I looked at what some of the other, you know, global development centers were doing if they had social channels. And then, you know, once I figured it out, it was like, okay, so then you walk the line between the two of what works and what doesn't. Yeah. So, you know, our videos have a look to them that is a little bit different than what the corporate videos do. And we tell stories in a slightly different way. And, you know, we do inject humor as much as we can. But I wouldn't, for me, it's tipping over to go into the animated GIF thing, depending on the client. If it was somebody else, I'd probably get into it.
How about emojis?
I like emojis. I don't use them on our social.
Okay.
I don't really do anything that's sort of, I don't want to call them gratuitous, but almost like, you know, if it made sense, I would use it.
You're not doing a lot of eggplant emojis?
Not doing a lot of eggplants, no.
Okay.
No, no peaches.
No, okay. Instagram stories, are you guys doing much?
No, we did one as part of an event, and the struggle that I have with it is that I have a videographer who like creates all this amazing content, and it's hard for me to take like iPhone video and I don't even like putting iPhone photos on our Instagram account because I shoot with an icon and I'm a bit of a purist of my photography, and everyone's like, you should just use your phone. I'm like, I know, but it's a struggle for me to be like, I'm just going to take it with my phone, but I can't get the depth of field that I want. I need a knife. I need a newer iPhone.
What do you have right now?
I have a 6S.
You have a 6S, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my coworker just got the 10, and so she's been doing the Animoji stuff.
Yeah.
Very jealous.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. While you're doing all this stuff, Reddit, are you a Reddit fan?
I read it on my own.
Yes, okay.
Redditing as a company, we haven't delved into it yet.
Okay.
I think we will this year because I love AMA.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
And the opportunity.
Those of you who don't know, Ask Me Anything it's a Reddit feature that's pretty awesome.
I would love to. We have some engineers that are just so fascinating.
Yeah.
They have such interesting backgrounds and like really interesting takes on technology. And then when you start talking about things like AI and where is it going and like what's the world going to look like in 5 years or 10 years, those are the kinds of people that I look at and think I get to pick their brain on a regular basis. But I think it would be cool to open it up and let them sort of, you know, talk to the audience directly. Yeah.
What are some publications that you think are just awesome and that we should be keeping an eye out for? Like they are emerging and just doing very unique stuff.
That's a hard question. I kind of go, when you look across all platforms, like we obviously pay a lot of attention to our major Canadian publications, our emerging online, I guess you can't even call Daily Hive emerging anymore. They're it. They've done such a good job of building a really solid, you know, interactive platform that allows people to get a lot of news in a very small period of time. Yeah. I am a bit of a Twitter junkie, so I spend most of my time and find all kinds of cool content on Twitter. Okay. And it's just a matter of following the right people. Yeah. And not being a troll.
Okay, great. Favorite Twitter person to follow at the moment?
Favorite Twitter person to follow? I follow too much political stuff right
Okay,
now.
okay.
Because the world of podcasts to me is only like maybe 8 months old when I got into it. And it was really just because I wanted more in-depth info on what was happening in U.S. politics because I find it fascinating.
Yeah. And now you're on a podcast.
I know.
Right
I don't even know how that happened.
Yeah.
So I follow a lot of those. Other than that, Chrissy Teigen is like, I don't even know how she does it.
Yeah.
I wish I was that funny.
Yeah. Ryan Reynolds is another. I'm a fan of his.
He's
Vancouver.
So good.
He's a Vancouver native.
Vancouver guy.
Yeah.
You know, talks the Vancouver talk.
But hilarious.
Has a Vancouver handle.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. It's pretty awesome. So, favorite channel on YouTube that you're watching at the moment?
I don't watch a ton of YouTube.
Okay.
If I'm watching YouTube, it's because I'm catching up on like Late Night with Seth.
Yeah.
So I'm into the content and out of the content pretty quick.
Okay. Yeah. And when you, as part of your job, I imagine a lot of families or kids ask, like, is there Minecraft being built in Vancouver?
Yeah.
Is that happening at the moment, or is it all in overseas?
It is not happening.
Is
not
it
happening in Vancouver.
Is it Mojang headquarters still in, is it Switzerland?
I actually don't know where they do all the development.
Okay.
It's probably hitting a couple different facilities now.
Okay.
But we aren't working on it in Vancouver at the moment.
Okay. Very cool. So I need to ask if you could pull out your phone. What are some of the favorite apps? And you can reference your phone here. Favorite apps that you're using at the moment, or apps that you use on the daily that are like really great.
I use Overcast because I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Okay.
I am a Snapchatter, but not really publicly.
Okay.
I Snapchat with my sister. That's how we communicate.
Okay, nice.
And I take photos. So I'm a Flickr user. Flickr, Instagram.
Okay, Flickr, nice.
Yeah.
Good for you, keeping it real. And Vancouver, is a Vancouver-born entity too.
Yes, I'm all about the local.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
How do you organize your apps? How do you do that here? I'm always curious to see.
I don't have a lot. That's it.
And that's the Hootsuite there.
There's the
That's where
Hootsuite.
you run your world from.
Airbnb, use that a lot.
Yeah.
Spotify.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, and then Reddit on here.
Actually, I took it off my phone. Oh, there it is.
There it is, yeah.
I was moving stuff around the other day because I need a new phone and my storage is getting full.
Oh, yes.
It's like more Spotify playlists I download, the more trouble I get myself into.
Yeah, and use the Apple Mail.
I use because I have my own mail and then I have company mail.
On Outlook, of course. What else would you be on?
Exactly.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
So, favorite podcasts that people you would suggest to people in maybe PR or marketing?
This podcast.
The Marketing Jam, yes.
Definitely.
Yes. Okay.
And there's another one that the name is going to escape me now because it was probably one of the things I thought you're going to ask me that and then I'm going to forget.
Canadian or is it American?
It's American.
Okay.
No, I won't remember.
Okay. I imagine This American Life is on your rotation.
This American Life is definitely on my rotation. They tell the best stories.
Yeah. Under the Influence, Terry O'Reilly.
Haven't watched that, or haven't listened to that, sorry.
So Canadian, it's a CBC podcast, and it's an old ad guy who is a copywriter who, has brilliant insights to the ad world.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of that, and the Unpodcast, of course, which is
I've listened. I think I've listened to it a couple times. I don't think I have it subscribed right now. It's
Scott
one of those
Stratton
ones where I go and like dig in, and then I get lost, and I take the train to work, so
oh, nice.
I have like 45 minutes of sort of transit each day, and I get caught up in Pod Save America.
Yes.
And the Daily from the New York Times.
Okay.
So
very cool. Yeah, the Unpodcast is great banter between Scott and Allison. It's the two of them bantering on about things and what's happening in marketing, and he has an HR background, talking about HR kerfuffles and just bad things in branding and marketing as well. So
that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's one more. I want to say they're out of Portland, but it's maybe just I think it because of Portlandia, but they're called Adlandia.
Oh, that's the one.
Oh, Adlandia. Yeah, okay,
I was like,
yes.
I'm not going to remember it, but it's because it's Portlandia that keeps.
Yes. Yeah. Adlandia. Yeah. That's a great one.
And I feel like you might have tweeted about it, and that's why I started listening.
Maybe because this podcast is hilarious, and it also has a great name.
Yeah.
If you're a Portlandia fan, it was. Yeah.
Although that show just got canceled.
Did it really?
Portlandia. Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Tech stuff in Vancouver. I want to talk about this. Some of the cool stuff happening. Tech Pong.
Yeah.
I'm aware of Tech Pong, and that is it. So why don't you educate us? Like, what is some of the things that like we need to be aware of what's cool and awesome in tech in Vancouver?
Yeah. So Tech Pong, it's run by I think the people at Chimp. Yeah.
Chimp, yeah.
And we've participated in the last 2 years.
Nice.
Because we have some crazy ping pong players.
Okay.
It's super cool.
Okay.
Because it's just a bunch of people getting together and like they play like they're backing away from the table and it's nuts.
It's serious.
But they also bring in like a lot of companies bring in stuff and they'll demo their product.
Oh, wow.
And so we brought our mixed reality viewer to the last one and like took a bunch of pictures with people with like giant tigers with ping pong paddles.
That is amazing.
Just have some fun with it.
Did you use the chimp product?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, we raised money for our charity is Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Okay, very cool.
So we used it to drive more funding for them.
Yeah.
And then we do in our office, we do tech foos.
Okay.
So we have a big foosball tournament because we've got some avid foosballers.
Very cool.
We have a little games room that has 1 ping pong table and 2 foosball tables, and we have like sliding glass doors around it. Otherwise, it gets a little chaotic in there. So we invited, I think we had 33 companies that came this past summer, and again, just hanging out, playing foosball, doing whatever, meeting each other. Because the tech industry is not super great at connecting.
Okay. And we have Mobify here,
yeah, we have so many companies.
Unbounce.
Yeah. Bench.
Yep.
Big companies that have like a lot of staff.
Yeah.
And it's just good for people to sort of get out and talk about what's happening in the industry in Vancouver. Outside of those two, there's some cool stuff. Last year we did, we are a sponsor for the Pride Parade.
Oh, nice.
And so we had a bunch of companies join us in that and, do sort of a Tech Loves Pride and like be inclusive as an industry.
Yeah.
And so there's cool stuff going on, like that's, kind of all community facing, and then, on the business side, and we're a growing ecosystem. There's so much happening in Vancouver right now, especially in the 3D space. So, I worked in video games for a few years, and that talent base, all those people that have been building games here for 20 years are naturally just falling into, they're doing 3D development for virtual reality, for mixed reality.
And not just 3D printing, right?
Not just 3D printing.
Okay.
No, like 3D development. So, if you're doing holographic design and you're building things for any of the platforms, whether it's HoloLens or Vive or Oculus, a lot of that work is happening in Vancouver because we have all these people who are super skilled in 3D.
And I want to hear about two things. I want you to tell us about is you mentioned the mixed reality. Tell us about that.
It's for people who've never tried it. It's sort of it's interesting to watch them put them on for the first time. So most people are familiar with virtual reality, where you put on a headset and you're cut off from the world. Yeah. And
like the cardboards and
just where you can't see anything whatsoever.
Yeah.
So if it's we have all of them in our store, so people can come in and try them, and you can do Google Paint, and you can paint in midair, and you're in it, and your mind is completely fooled by it, and you do your thing, and everybody outside is watching you and trying to stay out of your way. Mixed reality, or I guess before you go into mixed, sort of there's the augmented reality phase. So Pokemon. Where you're using your phone or screen to see.
IKEA app, trying to get furniture in your home.
Anything where you can kind of, it's as simple as looking at your screen and then you can see the object. Mixed reality is what we do, and so you're wearing a headset, but it's a full computer, untethered, so you don't have a cord or anything. And the holograms are in your real world. So I could still see you and everything else that's in this room, and then I could drop holograms in, I could place them, I could walk around them. So it gives a lot of flexibility to what businesses can do with it.
Wow.
So it's being used a lot in design and in workflow, and how people lay out a operating room, or how they design a vehicle.
Or building developers would probably love
it. Architects, anybody who's kind of designing a physical space, and like my husband works in oil and gas, and he said, somebody came in and gave him a demo, and they were like, here's the building that you guys are designing, and they were all looking at a model that was like on a table for all intents and purposes, and then he's like, okay, and now let's go in it, and then he blew it up, and then they were able to walk through a section of it.
Wow.
He's like, this is amazing.
That is really cool. And tell us about your Maker Lab, which I keep hearing about, and it just sounds so fascinating.
It's pretty fun. It's so we have a corner of the office when you first come in our building that has 2 big garage doors on it, and it's full of things that you would use to create.
And is this open to the public?
It's not. Okay. We do have events where we'll have a workshop, or we'll do something where people can come and participate in it. For the most part, we use it for school visits and on the education side, teachers will come in.
Okay. So Jacqueline just couldn't just show up and.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Sometimes if it's me, I'm really kind.
Really? Okay. So if I show up and I'm like, I know Pam.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll call me and they'll be like, "There's somebody here at the front desk."
And every listener will now know the secret password is
exactly.
I know Pam. Okay.
So we have 3D printers in there, like what
Cool.
you would expect. We have a laser cutter. We have a CNC machine.
Whoa.
And then we have things you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
So we have Stacy, who runs the space,
Yeah.
bought like a big old knitting machine.
Yeah.
And she's in the process of hacking it so that we can like put a design into the computer and then it will knit the design
So
for us.
like not like a Rumpelstiltskin type, like one that you make carpets with.
No, it's pretty Rumpelstiltskin-y. Like
Really?
it's about this big and it would knit out like a big part of a sweater.
Wow.
I think.
Have you made
I'd
anything
never
with
seen
it?
anything like it before. I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah.
I thought you had to do it by hand.
Yeah.
So she's been playing with it for a while, and you know, we'll get there eventually. We've got a pen plotter, so you can give it a design, and then the little hand will draw your design, and everything else you can do. You know, we've got something that makes stickers, and something that silk screens on T-shirts, and it's really, the space itself is meant to be a space for employees to come in and just be creative, make something that doesn't have to be work related. At the same time, Stacy runs tons of workshops in there for, you know, you might be working on Skype, but maybe you have an interest in machine learning or in AI. She runs all kinds of workshops that employees get to participate in so that they can sort of broaden their own interests and think about what they want to do with their career.
I was gonna say I bought a box of Lego for our boardroom and thought that was good enough. Now
you know what? We have Lego too.
Okay.
Like I think sometimes working with something that's hands-on, that's tangible, helps spur people's creative process.
Okay.
And we're doing some stuff right now. We're playing around with the idea of data visualization. So it will eventually get to the stage of being, you know, we're going to learn how to program and take all this data and make it look like something that is perhaps artistic in nature. But to get started, you can just play with Lego or, you know, play with those little, I don't know what they're called, but they're like little beads that you stick on and then you iron them and they stick together.
Yes, yeah.
Same idea. Just
Yeah,
something.
pearl beads.
Pearl bead, that allows you to represent whatever it is you're trying to do in a physical form and, you know, take your head out of the game so much. We spend so much time looking at screens that it's nice to look at something else.
Yeah. Does any of the stuff that you're seeing happening there ever scare you? Do you ever go home a little freaked out?
No.
Okay.
I think the question that most people have asked me is, when you're watching like Black Mirror, do you look at it differently than the average person? And I said, I probably look at it and go, yeah, I could see how we could get to that place.
Or that's more like 4 or 5 years off, or that's
like
more,
you know, I know, you know, some of them are more realistic, or you could see them happening, and you look at some conversations that people are having about technology, and you're like, I can see where the hesitation is, but where I always find value, or I find it interesting, is talking to some of our younger engineers. We have a lot of interns that come in who are still in university, and talking to them about where they think technology is going to go and how they're going to use it in their lives. Because I'm tied to a past that didn't have that, and so it's pretty common and totally acceptable to be apprehensive about it. But if you've grown up with technology and you see all the benefits that technology brings, and just like everything we always did, like there wasn't like there was no downside to living in an analog world. And so technology is the same, and we just have to approach it as thinking responsible humans, and we'll be fine.
Okay. And do you think we're generally pretty responsible humans?
I think for the most part.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of discussions around how technology gets used, and I think what's good about it is that it's spurring a lot of dialogue, and people are talking about it, and they're like, hey, you know, like, this is great, and this is where it's benefiting us, and maybe this is taking us down a road we don't want to go down, and we should talk about it.
Okay, very cool. Now, were you follow the CES updates and news and stories?
A little bit. I didn't follow a ton of it because I don't focus too much on product. So it was just sort of like, hey, what's happening, and who's there, and, you know, where are they headed? Parties are they going to? That's what I paid attention to.
No, of course. Is there anything that you're allowed to tell that's not under like lock and key at the moment that you are most excited about in the next 6 months coming out of Microsoft?
For us, no.
Okay.
our focus and my focus, the stuff that I get to talk about, is all local, and we don't have anything that we can talk about that's not secret.
Because it's super secretive.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So do you have to like get scanned and like, do you have stuff happen to you, but when you go into work and leave work?
No.
Okay, they just trust you with these
trust
secrets.
Me. Yeah,
Okay.
they trust me.
Okay.
I mean, I have the keys to the Twitter account, so I have to be pretty trustworthy.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I want to close with this. Those that are listening and watching, they want to know, how do I get to be like you? How can I get in your role one day? What's the advice that you would give them?
I think there's no shortcut to it. So, you know, it's time on the job. I had the opportunity to work in places where I was beyond my comfort zone most of the time. So it was a lot of like just trying to keep up and like pushing myself to learn more and know more. I'm a researcher by nature. I like to read everything, and so I would take jobs that scared me to death.
Yeah.
That I didn't know anything about, and then I would spend like a week immersing myself in the subject matter so that I felt like I could be confident talking about it. Because I think the biggest thing for communicators and marketers, when you're going from like perhaps from product to product, if you're on the agency side, if you're client side, it's a little bit easier, is sometimes you're touching that thing for like a week.
Yeah.
And being confident about, you know, like having the conviction to, you know, go out there with a bold idea.
Yeah.
For me, it requires some time
Yeah.
doing the research and getting comfortable with it so that I can talk about it intelligently.
Okay.
So that's sort of been my MO
Yeah.
my whole career, and it didn't matter how long I spent with a client, whether it was a day or a year.
Yeah.
I tried to know as much as I could about them, and then also be the sounding board for like, if I'm a layperson and I don't know anything about your industry, explain to me why this is important, and then I'll figure out how to pitch that to a media outlet.
Yeah.
So always taking that on yourself, like being responsible for owning that part of the relationship. I think too many times we're like, okay, well, give me your bio and I'll, you know, write a brief from it, but I'm not really going to spend any time internalizing it because you're going to be gone in 5 days.
Yeah.
That's, I think, been the key part of my success, and been, you know, people always ask me what my specialty is. Like, what industry do you specialize in? And I was like, any industry that will hire me.
Yeah.
You know, when you're a contractor, you need, you know, be open.
Yeah.
Because there's cool stuff out there, and so I just sort of learned a lot and was proud of being a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And then figured out the things that I really like doing and got really good at them, and you know, that's just practice.
Okay. And I need to ask on a personal level, you're wearing a Pura necklace.
I am.
Which is made here in Vancouver.
Yes.
What do you think influenced you to buy it? Do you think was it a digital ad? Was it a social media thing? Or was it a PR? Or was it just, you just saw it in a shop one day and it spoke to you?
I think I saw it in a shop.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Retail. You walked into a bricks and mortar. Yeah.
And I could probably tell you which store. And then I talked to the salesperson about, I like to know where things come from.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised in Vancouver, and I have this huge pride for the city, and want as much of what I, you know, buy or share with people. Like at Christmas, I try to do, I have like a 50-50 rule where 50% of what I buy has to be local, and 50% of it can come from somewhere else if somebody really wants something. But I just like supporting local business, because we have so many cool things happening here, whether it's, you know, retail goods like pair of necklaces, whether it's cute little coffee shops. You know, we've got a pretty great craft beer industry now. So it's always local. And then I spent 2 years working in Gastown, and when you're in a neighborhood like that, and probably a lot of other smaller neighborhoods around Metro Vancouver, where it's owner operated, entrepreneurial businesses, and you go and you talk to people and you learn a bit about them and why they have that thing, that store, that product, how passionate they are about it, you can't help but get on board and want to support them.
It's very cool. Very cool. Well, I'm going to thank you, Pam, for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Head of PR for Microsoft Vancouver. You know the password if you ever want to see her when you're in Vancouver. Just mention I know Pam, and you might even be able to check out the Maker Lab. And again, continue to check out some of the amazing innovations. I can't wait to continue to see and hear what comes out of Vancouver for the world to see. Maybe it'll be the next robots or the next
Who knows?
robot dogs or whatever. But thank you for making sure that their stories are told, their innovations are amplified, and the world hears and sees, whether it's in traditional media or bloggers or through social media. So thanks for all your insights today. They were amazing, and we'll see you again.
Yeah, thank you.